What we do is divided in a number of things. The main tool and the main weapon that we have is the website. Like I said in the beginning, that was the only idea that we had. We said that's going to be our platform, we're not going to do anything else. It's not possible to do anything else, we're just four. Most of us don't even live in the same city. Some of us don't even know each other. So we can't do more. So the website was mainly, it consists of a number of information, but the ones that I want to highlight today was, the first one is the information section, and it has all kinds of information about homosexuality and how it's related to an aspect in Iraq. For example, homosexuality and religion in Iraq, and we talk about both Islam and Christianity because both are major religions in Iraq. And we also encourage other people who are following other religions to submit the information that they have, and we will publish it that if it's related to the queer community. And also we have analysis of the legal system, both the local, the Iraqi legal system, but also the international human rights law. And also about the society, health, all information that we can gather that is not available in real life anywhere else on the website, online. The information that we have in Kurdish, for example, is not available anywhere else, not online or offline. The English information is, of course, based on a lot of other resources. And the Arabic is one of the very few resources in Arabic about gender and sexuality in the Middle East. And when it comes to the information of the sexuality and their relation to an aspect of the Iraqi society, that's not available anywhere, except for the website. The second tab that I want to talk to you about are the personal stories. That's an extension of the report that I told you about. And so far we have 6 stories. They're not the same as the ones that we had on in the report. And we are in the process of editing 3 more now. And we are also expecting to get 5 more within the next month. And the reaction to those stories has been massive. A lot of people have been resharing them, and some of the stories have been read more than 2,000 in a month. And it's basically real people who are sharing, again, their stories, living in Iraq, what they've been through. Some of them are a couple who are living together, their story of meeting, just giving a human face to the queer community in Iraq, because everyone thinks it's this foreign concept, like what is homosexuality? Like the US government and the US Army brought it to Iraq with them, and when they invaded Iraq in 2003, before that we didn't have homosexuality. It's like they brought a gay bomb and bombed everyone, and there were like a lot of people affected. Am I going too fast, or can you keep up? Yeah. Something else that we're doing is that we're having support circles. They're really small. The biggest circle that we have is 5 to 6 people, and it's led by the core members that we have. They reach out to people that they know or people that they know through other people, and they talk, they communicate, they brainstorm together, and just having a sense of a community, even if it's like 5 people. And we're hoping that these circles will overlap at some point, especially the ones that are existing in the same city. And what we want to do by this is we want to organize ourselves. The queer community is really disconnected in Iraq. We use Grindr and other apps, but they're really unsafe. And a lot of people end up being prosecuted or killed because they talk to someone that they trust after a while, and then they end up meeting that person who ends up being either a part of a local militia or just someone who suspected that that person is gay and they wanted to either threaten them or more. So we want to organize ourselves, and we want to know about each other, learn from each other, and also know what the real needs are. Because I'm gay, but I have one experience. I haven't experienced everything. My colleagues have the same thing. So we want to reach out to as many people as possible. One thing we've been doing recently was helping the queer community who are seeking asylum in different parts of the world. We are working with a few who are seeking asylum in Sweden, and a couple who are seeking asylum in Germany, in Turkey, and other countries. And we're finding out that, for example, in Turkey, when they apply through the UN agencies, they don't have any money. They don't get any help from the UN or from the IOM. They are not helped with residency, with residence in that country. They don't get any allowance, so they are asked to survive on anything that they have with them. And that could be easy, but then all of them end up having an interview 3 years later. So now I know people who went to Turkey and applied in 2015, beginning of 2015. Their interview is June 2018. So how is a person supposed to survive for 3 years, more than 3 years, with no money, no help, and no housing? And 2018 is the first interview where they will hear the story. That's when they will start assessing the story. So how long more will it take before they get the final decision? And who guarantees that it's a yes? And even if they did, how long is the process of being relocated to another country? And then starting the process again in that country after you arrive. Going through the residency, finding a work, learning the language, establishing a network. So the whole thing is like you're just spending 5 to 6 years basically just chasing something that people, for example, in Denmark or Sweden, don't even think about because they're born into it. Like a lot of people, the first thing we think of when we're Iraqis and want to travel somewhere, how long will the visa application take? While, like for example, if I wanted to even travel to Jordan, I live in Sweden, and it took me 30 minutes to be here, and it took me like an hour to decide. So there are so many things that, like, the more privileges we have, sometimes we tend to forget that those privileges they should be a basic human right, but they are like something that some people spend 5 to 6 years just chasing and maybe not even getting. We also gave a lot of trainings locally to a lot of activists, journalists, and government employees. When they come, they think that we're going to talk about human rights, which is true. We are talking about human rights. We're not telling you that we're only focusing on human rights for the queer community, but we're not, because human rights is human rights. There is no human rights for the LGBT community. It's not a special set of human rights. If you're gay, then you can jump a little higher or shorter. That's not the way it is. So we gave a lot of trainings, and we have a lot of reaction, both good and bad. I'll show one of the good ones. I was giving a training in Basra. It's a city in the south of Iraq. And I was explaining what, it was very basic, like what sexuality means, what queer means, and etc. And then one of the ladies, who was, I think now she's like 65, so the training was like a few years ago. She's covered, she's a widow and a grandmother. She asked, could you explain queer again? And I did. After the training, we went to walk over the Gulf to have dinner, and she asked me if she could talk to me in private. She held my hand and she said, I think I'm queer. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, what do you mean, okay? And I'm like, okay, you're queer. Good. You know yourself. And she's like, you're not gonna say anything? And I'm like, what am I supposed to say? You know yourself, and it's not my business. If you think you're queer, then great. It was like she was waiting for me to judge her, like to say, you're a grandmother, 60-something years old, how dare you be queer? You're immoral, you're covered. You know, that's the reaction that she expected. And then we continued walking. After like a few minutes, she was like, now I know why it didn't work out with my husband. It's great that she had the aha moment 60 years later. But these stories and these reactions make you feel like change and reaction could come from really random places, from really random people. This lady is a big example. And one thing that we started also doing that made all the Iraqi politicians and government pay attention to what we're doing is the writing a shadow report, which is basically a feedback to what Iraq says or tells the UN how they're committing to human rights. So this report, we show how they're not committing to human rights. We wrote this report in cooperation with 2 international organizations and 1 local organization that is a feminist organization but a supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. And we talk about all the violations that has been happening and how the Iraqi government is overlooking everything that is happening. The simplest thing is the killing campaigns are happening in public. So even if the Iraqi government is not personally illegalizing homosexuality in the constitution, it's not doing anything to support it. It's actually giving space to TV programs and shows and hosts to talk about homosexuality in a way that says this phenomenon should be eradicated from the Iraqi community. Our pure conservative community is not used to these threats. When did this start? And the TV show goes on for an hour and a half, receiving phone calls from the audience, and just almost all the calls are either saying, oh, this is an illness. This is because people spend too much time on Facebook. This is because they watch a lot of Hollywood movies. You will be surprised with all the conclusions people come up with. And there were just a very few number of people who called who were gay and just saying, you're basically pushing people to start going to the street and kill us. Some of the callers specifically said they should be killed. They should be punished by the law. So if the Iraqi government doesn't see that in a TV station that is led and controlled by the Iraqi government, isn't that a human rights violation? Shouldn't it be punished by the law? Isn't that hate speech? Isn't that attempted murder? I can go on with all the violations. So it's funny for me that the UN would actually believe what the Iraqi government is saying. Like that it's, the Iraqi government says we're fighting terrorism, so we can't also help the queer community. But isn't that terrorism? Like it's happening systematically, targeting a specific group of people, and it's killing. If that's not the definition of terrorism, I don't know what is. We have some indicators about how we're doing. So the website, we receive up to 7,000 people, as that's the average of the visitors every month. Sometimes we have up to 10,000 people, and it's from all over the world, but fortunately it's mainly from Iraq. Our social media grew in 1 year. Now we have almost 7,000 people both on Twitter and Facebook. Our reach, the weekly reach is almost 5,000 people interacting with the, following the post every week. And also I received emails like this. This is one of the members who, she also wrote one of the stories. She's one of the contributors to the website. And she's sharing how that was the first time she thought about and wrote her story to that extent of honesty and rawness. She never even talked about it to people. She had like a few friends who knew to a certain degree, but not as detailed as she wrote in the story. Then we have international reaction. We were featured in Out magazine. It's one of the biggest queer magazines in the world. We were featured in Huffington Post, where they talked about our work in detail. That was in November. Prospect magazine, the title is a bit misleading. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but I have political ambition, so hopefully one day. If any of you guys end up being in politics, let's keep in touch. Then there's one in QX, I'm not sure how many of you know it, but it's a big Scandinavian queer magazine. And one of the most important things that we received as a reaction was in August last year, 2015, there was the first ever Human Rights Council meeting that is led by the UN that talks about the security of the LGBTIQ plus people. And in their conclusion, they say that if people in Iraq, if IraQueer can do it with volunteers in the country, by the way, we're not older than 25, I'm the oldest member. If we can do it in Iraq, so can the international community. What's next for us is now we're finalizing the process of registering the organization. That's the main part why I live in Sweden now, because it's illegal to do that in Iraq. Basically, everything I represent and do is illegal in Iraq. So we are hoping to finish the registration process in some weeks. After that, we're going to be giving the trainings on a larger scale. We're very public about the work that we're doing. We already have haters, so that's a good sign. So we're going to try to reach out to more people and try to do more trainings. Most likely, at least the public ones will not happen in Iraq, inside Iraq. They're going to happen outside. But we're also hoping to organize small trainings, even if it's one-to-one person inside Iraq, because not everyone can afford to travel or can travel in the first place, even if money wasn't an object. We will be working closely with the UN, not with them, against them, make them push the Iraqi government. Sweden, for example, is a really big donor state in Iraq. The US is also, the Netherlands. So why aren't you pushing more for real human rights? The Iraqi government has an LGBT committee in the Human Rights Ministry, which first, Human Rights Ministry is now demolished. It's now a part of the Iraqi government. Just shows you the priority that they have. And second, that committee was supposed, like on paper, it was established in 2012 or 13. Since then, every year we go at least 6 times to the ministry, and everyone there is like, what are you talking about? We don't have that committee. And then we talked to the people who told us about the committee, and they put us in contact to one of the members, and they're like, yeah, we're underground and secret, we don't tell everyone. We're like, it's not that you're not telling everyone, no one knows. And if no one knows and you're not doing anything, then what are you doing? Like, why do you exist? And it's now with the new government that was established last year, they renewed or extended the responsibilities of those people. And until this very moment, there is not even one activity that they were a part of, except for going to, for example, the Netherlands and meeting the government, saying that we're trying our best, and then going back to Iraq. So what we want is an Iraq where everyone is equal. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what religion you believe in, what language you speak, where you live, how tall or short are you. The only thing that we care about is enjoy the full range of your human rights and your responsibilities, and don't hurt anyone else, regardless of who you think they are. And it's going to be a really long journey, but hopefully it's going to be worth it. Thank you.